This week, we interview Tony Bellatto, a wine sommelier and the man behind Lost and Found and La Barba Cigars. We'll talk about a lighter that costs more than your car in our Debonair Ideal segment. And round things out with our Stogies of the Week, where myself fights Chuck Norris for the Tatuaje Classic. All that and more, so stay tuned. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, the show where cigars burn slow, ashes fall fast, and the cocktails flow steady. It's the Stogie Geeks Show. This segment is sponsored by Saga Cigars. Every new blend borrows from the past, and the Saga Blend No. 7 has done just that. It's the perfect combination of timeless knowledge of traditional tobaccos and the newer balance that today's cigar enthusiasts come to expect and love in a finer cigar. Leveraging 6 generations of experience and tradition of the Reyes family, the Saga Blend No. 7 delivers a unique, full-flavored, medium-bodied cigar. The cigar is highlighted by a Brazilian wrapper over a blend of Central American and Dominican tobacco. Available in 3 sizes at an affordable price, the Saga Blend No. 7 is sure to please and bring together past and present. And by the Havana Cigar Club, located in Warwick, Rhode Island. It's a great place to enjoy a drink and a cigar. Stogie Geeks listeners can find a $5 off coupon on our website by clicking the HCC logo. And by A.J. Fernandez Cigars, makers of the San Latano, one of the most talked about cigars in recent years, now offered in a groundbreaking line extension, the San Latano Bull. The San Latano Bull features an extensively aged and hearty core of Nicaraguan long fillers nestled beneath an attractive Ecuadorian Sumatra wrapper. Housed in a cedar sleeve which depicts the outline of a bull only solidifies this cigar as a full-flavored cigar. Removing the sleeve reveals a box-pressed cigar with a beautiful, oily, and smooth chocolate brown wrapper. The San Latano Bull burns nice and neat as it issues columns of smoke, hitting you with a wall of spice followed by leather and cedar. This densely packed cigar intensifies in deep, rich flavors and becomes a flavor bomb about halfway through, only getting better with each passing draw. Strong yet smooth and perfectly balanced, A.J. Fernandez, who many have called the tobacco prodigy, has somehow pushed the already spectacular San Latano line of cigars forward with the Bull. A.J. Fernandez challenges you to take on the Bull, Cigar Snob's number 8 cigar of the year for 2014. Welcome, everyone, to the Stogie Geeks Show. I'm your host, Paul Asadori, and joined in the lines via Skype by none other than Mr. Will Cooper.
Hey, greetings, Paul. Greetings, Apollo.
Yes, Apollo is here in studio making his triumphant return to the Stogie Geeks. Very nice to have you here in studio.
Thanks for having me, guys.
We didn't get to smoke the pipe. We're preoccupied with everything going on.
I'll get the pipe out.
Okay. All right.
That'll happen.
You have some interesting tobacco that I want to try.
Got some Tabrique.
Yeah, I may get my pipe out as well. So, Will, do you want to take the honors of introducing our very special guest? We're just going to get right into it this evening.
Yeah, our guest is Tony Bellatto tonight. And Tony's wearing a lot of different hats, actually. But in the last, I'd say, 18 months, he's been involved in some of the hottest projects right now going on in the cigar business. He's one of the persons behind La Barba Cigars. He's one of the principals behind Lost and Found Cigars. He's got another brand, which I think is called Siempre Tamboril, which we'll talk about. And he's a wine sommelier on top of all that. So, I mean, he's bringing it all to the table. Tony, Will Cooper in North Carolina, Paul and Apollo in Rhode Island. Welcome to the Stogie Geek Show.
It's good to see you guys. Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, it's nice to have you on the show, Tony. So, Tony, how did you get your start in the cigar industry?
Oh, it's a long story, but my dad opened up a retail shop in 1970. It was basically just a book and newsstand. Back before cigars were a big deal, and they went to the very first. Back then it was the RTDA trade show, and now it's the IPCPR, which we're going to in 2 weeks. And he was at the very first one, and I'll never forget the story. They had him in hotel suites, and each manufacturer had his own hotel room, and you would go through the hallways and go into the different hotel rooms to see the manufacturers, and it was back when you could actually smoke inside somewhere. And they were trying to get into, I don't remember who the brands were at the time, but they were, like the Generals and the Altadis's and the bigger brands, and they were too busy, so they went into a little hotel room with no one in it, and it happened to be Carlos Fuente and his dad Carlito. And my dad said he sat in that hotel room with those two guys and smoked cigars for 7 or 8 hours, and no one walked into their booth. And so my dad actually rented a station wagon and drove it to New York because he thought he was going to get all the cigars that he bought at the trade show. He thought he was going to take home with him, which is kind of funny to me. But anyway, so he became friends with Carlos and his dad. My dad's the same age as Carlito. My grandfather's the same age as Carlos Sr., and they became friends, and they opened up my dad as an account, and we were one of the first accounts that had Fuente in the country.
And where's the shop located?
We're in Northeast Ohio.
Okay.
So my dad's store used to be called Gerard Book and News way back in the day, and now I've taken it, and I added a wine, I added draft beer, I added spirits, and did all that. But I've been smoking cigars throughout the whole thing. Then I decided to go
early on a Fuente account, and now you've progressed to you're a full cigar bar.
Right. We have about 1,000 different boutiques, but we have the standards. We have Fuente, Ashton, the old classics. And I was telling you earlier, I was weaned on 858 Camerons. So that was a cigar that my dad was weaned on. That was like his favorite cigar, and then that became my favorite cigar when I was young.
And what's the name of the shop today?
Havana House.
Havana House. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. That's really cool. Now, did you have a question? I was going to
go ahead.
I was going to go somewhere. So you became a wine sommelier. How does that kind of intersect with cigars for you, and how did that come about?
Well, I fell in love with wine, and strangely enough, in college. I come from an Italian family, and wine was always on the table, and I used it in college as kind of a reason to get all my friends together and to sit around a table. You know, you're in college, everybody's busy, and I kind of took it as an opportunity to sit down and say, all right, we're gonna have pasta and wine and smoke cigars.
So, dude, you brought Sunday Italian dinner to your college.
Right, I went to Miami of Ohio, which there wasn't a lot of Italian.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there wasn't a lot of Italian influence in Miami of Ohio.
My last name is kind of it doesn't portray my heritage correctly. I'm actually
nor does mine.
Yeah,
Nor does mine.
I'm 3/4 Italian. I grew up in Rhode Island, so I mean Sunday dinner was like that was the thing, right?
Right. So that's what I did, and I fell in love with wine. And my dad called me and was opening up a new store, and said, what are your plans? And I had planned on being a lawyer or doing something professional. And he said, well, we're either going to shut down the business and I'm going to move on and retire, or you can come home and help me do this. And I was kind of at a crossroads. So I was like, okay, I'll come home. And I came home, and a wine rep came in, and I started tasting wine with him, like premium wine. And I'm like, man, something like clicked in my head. I'm like, there's something to this. So I sought out a wine school in Cleveland called the Cleveland Wine School. It's a WSET program, which stands for Wine and Spirits Education Trust. And it's a stepping stone for the Master of Wine program. So I went there at 20 years old and actually fibbed on my little thing that wanted to know if I was 21. And I went through all the levels that I could possibly go through, and came home with my certificate. And then, after tasting wine and starting, wine actually opened up my palate more to cigars than anything ever has. I used to be able to taste minor differences between Cameroon and Habano and Ecuadorian Connecticut and regular shade grown. I could taste the differences in the cigars, but I was on like a mild, medium, full kind of thing. But once my mind was open up to wine and food especially, because I used to eat well-done steaks too before wine school. Now I get home from wine school, I'm eating beef tartare with raw quail eggs, and it really opened up my palate to cool stuff. And so then I started smoking cigars and fell in love with that, and decided, well, maybe I'll throw my hand at a cigar, because I don't think that I'll ever be good enough to blend a Bordeaux, but I want to one day, so I'm working on that.
Nice. Apollo, did you have questions along the...
Oh, I have so many questions. So again, I run a wine review website. I used to work at a French restaurant. I love food, wine, cocktails, and cigars. And you guys here are just really opening me up to it, and I love it. Thank you so much. So as far as questions go, which wine styles do you find pair best with cigars in general?
My general rule of thumb is that you either want to, and the same goes for food and wine, and you could probably, because I'm not a professional chef by any means. I can make pasta, and that's about it. But you either totally want to compare or totally contrast flavors. So, for example, if you're going to eat Thai food, you'd probably want to drink a sweeter wine like a late harvest Riesling or maybe an ice wine. So you get that sweet and the spicy. So depending on what I'm smoking, if I'm smoking say I'm smoking a Tatuaia Brown Label, that cigar is full of spice, or an Opus X, that cigar is full of spice. So I'm going to maybe put it with a port, or I might put it with a dessert wine, or I might take it and I might pair it with the Syrah because the Syrah is super spicy. But I never want to outshine the core flavors that are in either the cigar or the wine. So I either want them to complement each other and really bring out those components, or I want them to totally contrast each other. But if you start messing around in that middle area is when the flavors start to muddle one another, if that makes any sense.
Interesting, yeah. That's the thing too. When I go to the wine bars in Boston, my go-to is always either Madeira or port. So those are really, I feel like it's a pretty good safe choice for most cigars. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, because you have. Wine was really tough because it's really delicate, and cigars are really have a lot of flavor. So if you're in that, my favorite wine is Pinot Noir, but I rarely ever drink it while I'm smoking because it ends up tasting like water. So you need something with a lot of backbone to pair. So, like you said, you really like Bordeaux. So if you do a really big right bank Bordeaux, you can get away with that. You can get away with the port because it's fortified with brandy and it's got that sweetness. My favorite thing to do is pair. And it's a little bit easier is to pair cigars and spirits, or cigar and beer. Those are a little bit more approachable and a little bit more. I don't know. You can. There's a lot more to choose from.
Do you think those pair pretty well because of the maltiness?
Yeah, I would say the sweet from the malt. A lot of stouts. I mean, stouts and cigars. There's nothing better than just a regular Guinness. A regular Guinness and a cigar. I mean, a Guinness goes with every cigar, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right, Tony. That's a pretty safe choice when you're pairing. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So Paul was mentioning he had a IPA one time. That paired really well.
Some IPAs pair really. So I had, I don't know if it was an IPA, but it was like a Belgian-style light beer. And it was, Will, when we did the CAO, and Tony, this is an interesting, CAO sent us a bunch of different beers and a bunch of different cigars and told us to pair them. And they paired a Connecticut with like a Belgian-style ale. And I'm like, there's no way these are going to go together. But to talk about, and they paired fabulous. But Tony, go back to what you were saying. You either kind of go on complete opposite ends of the spectrum.
The contrast.
Take something that's a little spicy with something that's got a little creaminess, like a Connecticut, and it'll actually pair pretty well. And I was really surprised. But Tony, you just kind of backed that up and really helped me visualize some of my pairings. Is that you either kind of keep them close together or go on opposite ends of the spectrum? Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
That's exactly what I'm saying. If you do a big sweet Maduro, you can do something again. You could do something spicy like a Syrah, or you could pick something sweet. And it depends on it also depends on everybody's palates. That's why there's so many cigars out there. That's why there's so many wines out there. Everybody likes different stuff, and you just have to get into a groove and understand your own palate and start to say, okay, well, I know. I've never had this cigar before. I've never had this wine before, but I know characteristically this cigar's from Nicaragua, has a Habano wrapper. What's that going to taste like? Well, the wrapper's going to be sweet. It's going to have a little bit of spice to it. I've never had this Bordeaux, but I know it's left bank, so I know it's Cabernet dominant. So maybe I'll take this and I'll put it together and see what happens.
Which Cabernet?
I mean, which one wouldn't you drink from the left bank, man?
I mean, I prefer the Cab Franc, but yeah.
Oh, you're a right bank guy?
Yeah. That's the thing. It always gets everyone says, I like cab. And I'm like, you got to define which one.
Oh, that's what you mean. Okay. So, Cab Sauv. Yep. Because Pete was up the other day, and we were tasting his wine, and I'm a big left bank guy. He's a big right bank guy. He loves Cabernet Franc. I love Cabernet Sauvignon. So it's a fun argument to have. Why do you like it? Why do you like it? Blah, 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 blah. So.
I think at the end of the day, as long as you like it, that's what matters.
You guys are making me want to try some wine again. I find, Tony, if I drink wine, like pretty consistently as my spirit of choice, it agrees with me pretty well. If I drink it every once in a while, I tend to get a headache.
You have to get used to the. Well, there's a couple things. I sell wine, so I get a lot of people asking a lot of questions. So sulfites are a natural byproduct of wine, okay? But a lot of people add sulfites to preserve the wine, okay? Because it's already in there, so they add a little bit more. Well, the sulfites, if you're not used to it, sulfite is kind of like a histamine, and there's a lot of histamines in wine because just naturally, if you're allergic to pollen, it's the same idea. So you take an antihistamine.
I am. Yeah, I have really bad allergies. I take an allergy pill like from spring to fall.
So I got a really hard question for you. What is a good style of white wine to pair with cigars? Would you say something like a Sancerre or perhaps a Chablis?
Yeah, you could do either one of those. I mean, it depends on. I would pair more of a California Chardonnay rather than a Chablis because
really
Chablis
heavy
is
on the oak.
Yeah, because Chablis, is always unoaked in Chablis. You could do a Bourgogne from outside of Chablis, where they do sometimes add a little bit of that malolactic, like the malolactic fermentation. So you get a little bit of that butter, and you could get a little bit of that toasty oak. So I would go. I mean, like for example, Rombauer Chardonnay is one of the biggest butteriest Chardonnays I've ever had from California, and you can use that wine with. I mean, that would be great with my Siempre Connecticut, a shameless product pitch. No, but it would be great with a Connecticut, because Connecticut's, like you were saying, are buttery, they're rich, they're toasty. So you take that and you pull with a Chardonnay that is buttery, rich, and toasty, and they'll enhance each other and kind of pull each other up. Nice. Sancerre, you could do, whatever. I would say whatever you would pair an IPA with is what you would want to pair a Sancerre with.
That's what I was thinking. Or something really bright and kind of acidic.
Yeah, any of those Sauvignon Blancs, like a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc or Sancerre, you take and you pair with something that you would pair an IPA with, because an IPA's got that fresh, crisp, clean. What did you end up pairing the IPA with? May I ask, for the CAO thing? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was it was their Connecticut line.
No, it was the Osa Sol.
Okay.
Osa Sol.
That
was paired with the IPA. Yeah.
So I mean, you could do that. You could try that with a Sauvignon Blanc. You could try that. Like a sun-grown wrapper with a Sauvignon Blanc, because it's, they're both spicy. IPAs are spicy because of that alpha acid, and so are Sauvignon Blancs. They're grassy, hay. I always say they have that cat pee nose to them, but it's just.
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt. It was a CAO Gold. I'm sorry. You're correct, Paul.
CAO Gold. And what was that paired with, Will?
Raging Bitch Belgian style IPA.
Was the one that I drank with that
one.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice. So what about some of the fruitier reds, things like the Grenache, Tempranillos, even some of the lighter Malbecs?
You can, and Zinfandel too. California Zinfandel is a really popular grape right now. Those are, those jam forward, real big fruit, fruit bombs. But I would do something. I would do something again really spicy, or I would do something. To me, Zinfandel anymore, especially California Zinfandel and Grenache and Tempranillo, they're getting a little too cloyingly sweet for me. So I wouldn't pair it with a sweet cigar personally. But some guys like that. So I mean, that's kind of up in the air as far as that's concerned.
Okay, so what about the other far end of the spectrum? Really heavy tannic, things like Negro Amaro, things like the Cab Francs, some of the heavy Nebbiolos.
You could do with Barolo. I mean, those are kind of wide open. The only thing, with Barolos and like right bank Bordeaux, like Saint Emilion and those, those areas. I mean, even Brunello from Tuscany, you could, that Sangiovese, you can get away with doing. You got to do heavy cigars on those. You have to do heavy Habano cigars on those, just because you can't even get, if you're drinking a young Barolo, like a Barolo off the shelf is, I believe by law, 4 years, aged in barrel. And 2 in the bottle, so you're looking at a 6-year-old wine. You open up that thing, and you can't even. I mean, it rips the taste buds off your tongue. So you're gonna need something. You're gonna need something that kind of holds up to that. My favorite thing in the world to pair with cigars is champagne, And I know it sounds weird,
Interesting.
Yeah, a lot of people have
But
said that.
I
Tony.
never even thought sparkling wine. That's really
No,
cool.
a lot of people have said champagne is awesome with cigars.
because it wipes your palate clean every time.
Yeah.
But you still get, if you're drinking like if you drink a rosé or even a brut, you taste the fruit up front, and champagne. And my favorite's cava, and my partners and I are actually working on a cava out of Spain.
Oh, nice.
Well, I haven't told anybody that yet, so you guys get the inside scoop.
Oh,
But
awesome. Thank you.
so we have with cava. Cava gets you right in the front of the mouth, and then it disappears. There's almost no finish. So it wipes your palate clean, but it introduces all those fruit flavors like strawberry or the stone fruit like peach or pear, or not pear. Yeah, pear, and like those kind of pitted fruits.
Yeah, the like apricot kind of stuff.
Yeah, apricot. So those pitted fruits, and then it's gone. And then you take a puff of your cigar, your palate's totally clean, and now you get to reapproach the cigar.
I kind of wonder, people are going to hate me for saying this, but I kind of wonder how good quality Moscato would go with a nice cigar.
It would go good if and I don't have a problem with Moscato. I mean, a lot of people do, but
There's good
in my
stuff
opinion,
out there.
Yeah, I'm sure it's what kind you
Yeah.
buy.
yeah, it's better to me. It's better than White Zinfandel, and I'm a rosé guy, but I really don't like White Zinfandel. But anyway, yeah, you could do a real big, spicy, full-bodied cigar with a nice Moscato, and it'll tone down the
balance each
sweet.
other out.
It'll tone down the sweetness of the Moscato. It'll give you the little effervescent that you need, and it'll clean your palate and get you ready to get the cigar again. So
That's really cool. I got to try that sometime. So my last question is, this is going to sound really complicated and convoluted, but would a food pairing, so when I think of what food pairs with a cigar, a really good steak, bacon, lamb, really heavy meats, and I know what wine pairs with those two. Mm-hmm. Do you think you can transition those pairings over to cigars easily?
absolutely. But you have to. Obviously, you're smoking the cigar last. So if you're,
Yeah.
the way I approach a meal is, I find out if I'm ordering for the table. I find out what everybody's eating first, because that's the most. At a meal, that's what you're there for. So that's the most important thing. So I would find out what everybody's eating first, and then I'll take all that into consideration and say, okay, well, if Paul's eating fish and I'm eating steak, we're probably going to want to go with the middle ground of like a Chardonnay or Pinot Noir, because I can take the steak down, but you can't. Tannin and fish oil really react together poorly, so you can't. You have to have a light tannin wine to do something with fish.
I do Grenache sometimes with salmon. That pairs pretty well.
Yeah. Because salmon doesn't have a lot of that. It doesn't have a lot of that grease that reacts with the tannin, so that's a good pairing. But so then I would say, all right, well, what is everybody going to smoke? So now that we have this wine, what are you guys going to smoke? So now we're going to go back and recollect ourselves, and if there's empty bottles of wine on the table, then we're going to say, okay, well, now what are we going to do? But if I were to do it course by course by course, I would pick the cigar out last. I would pick the food, I'd pick the wine, I'd pick the cigar.
Nice.
I'd pick the food, I'd pick the wine, I'd pick the cigar. Because you can always go back to wine. I hate to say it, but you can always pair back to wine.
Interesting.
awesome.
Interesting.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. Like that's so eye-opening
Well, I'm thinking
to see that.
like, a couple of years I'm going to be 40 and I want to have a really big celebration.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking that food and like wine and cigars is a perfect
Oh, man,
celebration.
that'd be
Tony, you got to fly you out here for that so
insane.
you can make
I'm
it
in.
all fabulous, right?
I'm in.
Awesome. Will, you had some questions for Tony along the lines of some of the cigars that he's been involved with.
Yeah, so Tony, let's I guess we'll start like at the beginning. Originally, I guess your first venture was La Barba, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Could you
that
take
was
us
my
through
first,
the
cigar.
Yeah, and could you take us through the early days of La Barba? I understand that you originally were making your cigars out of Honduras, and then you transitioned them over to the Dominican Republic.
Yeah. So we originally were using some Corojo from Honduras, and I really liked the cigar. But then, in a nutshell, what ended up happening is I ended up falling in love with Dominican tobacco. Again, it's kind of my roots. I loved Corojo as I guess adolescent in my palate span, and now that I'm kind of getting back, I want to kind of get back to my Dominican roots and what I grew up on. So I decided to move the production to the Dominican Republic. I get my cigars made at the the William Ventura factory now. And I use tobacco that's grown by Leo Reyes. He grows some of the greatest tobacco, I think, in the world. So that's kind of where the transition went from the red La Barba to the purple. And now that I'm with the purple, I'm really happy with the cigar. I know a lot of people like the red one. I really like the red one too, but I kind of I want to stay true to my roots and really explore this thing in the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm smoking a purple now, and you gave me the first purple. I remember we were sitting at the champagne bar at the Palazzo, and I loved it then.
Yep.
And Paul smoked it as well as talked about it on the show. So tell us a little about that La Barba Purple.
Okay, so we use and I know I talked about the Dominican roots, and I'm gonna put my foot in my mouth and say I use a wrapper from Ecuador, but there's hardly any cigars that are pure Dominican. I know that Robbie does a couple. Caldwell does the King is Dead is a Dominican wrapper. Opus is obviously a Dominican wrapper, but it's a hard wrapper to mess around with. So I use an Ecuadorian Habano wrapper, and then I use Dominican Corojo for the binder. I use Dominican Corojo Ligero for the filler. I use Habano Alto Bajo Seco for the filler, and I use a tobacco called Carbonel. It's grown by on one farm, and that kind of I smoked that tobacco, and I really loved it, and it stood out in a room full of people. That room smell, you could really tell that the Carbonel was there, and I started inquiring about it, and nobody thought we could blend with it. And it's a really long story, and we started playing around with these different blends, and I was inquiring about it, and I found out that it was a single family, single farm kind of thing. And that kind of really harped true to my wine roots, as I like single varietal wines or single vineyard wines. So I thought that was fun. And the Carbonel is kind of a modified Criollo seed that's in its experimental phases that literally only one family in the DR grows. And the name of the family is the Carbonel family. So.
It's interesting you say about, because this is actually the third time Carbonel's come up, and we've heard the same thing. It's a tough tobacco to blend with, because Robert Caldwell is using it in The Last Czar, and Luis Falto is using it in one of his blends. So, and we've kind of heard that it's like good tobacco, but not easy to blend with.
Right, and I was with Robbie when he did the I keep saying when we did the La Barba Purple and when he did The Last Czar. I was with him when we were messing around with that cigar, and that I love that cigar. I think that cigar is amazing. But it was that cigar was really, really, really hard to get right, and he nailed it. I think, in my opinion, he nailed it. So, and I haven't smoked the Luis Falto yet, but I love that the tobacco is so aromatic and it's so delicate. It's really hard to put with a lot of other things. But again, that goes with the pairing thing. When you blend, is what do you want? You got aromatic, you got floral, you got sweet, you got spicy, you got all these different flavors to kind of balance out and make, a straight line. And, Robbie and I have really liked this Carbonel tobacco, so.
Yeah, so you have a connection. So obviously you and Robert, Robert, obviously, and you have another project that I think everyone knows about, which is the Lost and Found project, which I guess it's separate from La Barba, and it's also separate from Caldwell Cigars, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a totally fun side project that we started. So it has nothing to do with either company.
Yeah, so for folks who may not be, I think a lot of folks are familiar with, but maybe for folks who aren't, just tell us a little about what that project is and what's unique about that.
Okay, so my partners with La Barba and the guys that I'm working on the Cava with, they own a company called Treasure Hunter Wines, and what they do is they have the wines that they blend themselves, and they have these Treasure Hunter wines. And basically, what they do is they approach wineries that may have made more wine than they wanted to make. For example, a winery like Camus is going to come out with 500 cases of wine, just because they come out with and they're only going to come out with 500 cases of wine. And I'm not saying by any means that he has used Camus, because there's non-disclosures involved. I'm just using that as an example because that was the first thing that popped into my head. So they make 500 cases, and that's all they make. But they might make more wine. Because if you have more grapes, why would you not make more wine? It could be used as house wine, or it could be used as wine for, the people that own the winery, or, friends and family kind of thing. Well, I fell in love with that concept because I was, 21 and broke, and I was not able to taste these high-end wines. And I developed a friendship with Hunter, and he would, kind of tell me, maybe this might be from here, or this might be from there, And we developed a really good relationship. So fast forward to the cigar thing, Robbie and I were in the Dominican Republic at the Ventura factory, and we smoked a cigar that was, not meant for anybody. It was just there. And we were like, we smoked it. That was the pepper cream soda. We smoked it, and we're like, man, what is this cigar? So every time we went back to the DR, we were buying handfuls of them for ourselves. And the same with the Silent Shout. I would buy 100 of those cigars right from Henderson. I would give them, like $50 cash and take 100 cigars home. and they were literally just like cigars that were made for this reason or for that reason, or maybe they're overproduction, or maybe they're this, or maybe they're that. And so then Robbie started going to Honduras and Nicaragua, and I was back here at the shop, and he would come back, or he would call me from down there and be like, because he's my best friend, and we've really been doing this together for a while. And he would call me and be like, man, I smoked the most amazing cigar from like 2005. So that automatically puts my ears up, because I'm a vintage wine drinker, I'm a vintage cigar smoker. And he's like, well, you're never going to believe what factory this is from, blah, 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 blah. And this used to be this cigar, and this used to be that cigar. Or this was blended for this guy a long time ago, or this was an overproduction. And I'm like, why don't we just make it simple, and we'll get these out to people as just unbanded. I know we have a lot of gimmicky marketing, and we have a lot of fun with that. That is more for us to have fun with. But the whole idea of it is that we don't put money in bands, we don't put money in boxes. We're just throwing these cigars in and getting them out there for people to smoke. It used to be a $20 cigar is now a $10 cigar. And they're awesome, and that's all they're meant to be. We didn't blend them. We don't take credit for doing that. All it is they're great cigars that are meant to be smoked right now. If we smoke something and we don't think it should be smoked, we'll sit on it. It's kind of like a negociant for cigar smokers. Okay,
I want some of those. That sounds amazing.
Well, I don't know if you've ever, Paul, I don't know if you've ever heard of La Wall Wines, and she's one of the biggest negociants in Burgundy. Her family was Romani Conti.
Oh, wow.
She's one of the biggest.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, so what she'll do is she just released last year a 1999 Chardonnay. And I would never think that a Chardonnay would drink as perfect as it did. But what she does is if she doesn't like it, it doesn't go out. And she'll sit on it for years and years and years until she thinks it's perfect.
Nice.
And she'll drink wine from all over the place. And if she doesn't like it, she says, I can't use it. I don't want to put my name on it. And that's kind of exactly what we do with the Lost and Found project is exactly that. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be, we found these cigars and we can't smoke all 3,000 of them.
When I get to Boston, that's the thing I'm looking for next. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. So Tony, this exploded. And I asked Robert this question. Why do you think this thing exploded so much? Because I've seen these cigars go up, and people just went. I haven't seen really a rush for cigars like this in a long time. What do you attribute to that?
Well, I can't say for sure, but maybe the fact that they're actually truly limited is, I think you'd never be able to get that cigar again. I think is maybe what contributed to it. We had, the original pepper cream soda. I can't remember the exact number of them, but there was like 2,650 cigars. So Robbie and I took the 650 for us to smoke, and then, it's 2,000 cigars. That's it forever. That's it forever. You'll never see 2006 pepper cream sodas ever again, because you just can't do it. It's impossible to recreate.
So I'm kind of curious, tying the wine world and cigar world together, do you see any kind of international style evolving? This is for all
international
three of you guys.
Style.
Yeah. So, for example, you have the Robert Parker reviews that try and score, wines. Do you see that in the cigar world too?
Robert
I'm
Parker.
sorry.
Who's Robert
I'm
Parker?
still not. Wine Spectator.
Yeah,
He's
wine
like
spectator. So
okay.
basically,
I just
Marvin
learned about
Shank.
him today. I just learned about him today, actually.
yeah, so that's the thing too. So Robert Parker is amongst many other wine sommeliers and drinkers and everything, and he goes out and he gives a score to the wines. And I personally don't believe in that because what that score is a reflection of his personal taste, which is great.
Right.
He's an expert in the field, knows a lot of stuff. But do you guys see that scores coming out from magazines also for some of the cigars, kind of pushing the overall industry toward a general flavor profile that certain reviewers enjoy?
I think so for sure. I mean, I think there's a lot of guys out there, and I think that some guys live by what you and Coop say, and some guys live by what guys like Half Wheel or Cigar Aficionado. I mean, sometimes you just find a guy that harps true when there's a lot more cigar review guys out there than are wine review guys out there, and especially when it comes, especially when the community's huge, and I love it because you find somebody that has a similar palate to you, and you begin to trust them. So then you go on their site and you look at Cigar Coop, and you look and see what he smoked and what he really liked, and then you pick up the cigar for the first time and you love it. Now you're reading Coop's blog all the time, and because his flavor profile is very similar to yours. And I think that that's really cool. And I think again that harps back to not every cigar is for every person. But I think that there's enough guys out there to support the business, obviously. So cigar smokers, consumers out there that support the business, that there's an ability to have this big media association in cigars, and that's the coolest thing I think about it, because you don't really see it in wine, and I wish wine would actually catch up to the cigar groups, and wine would catch up to the camaraderie ship. And I know if I see Coop, it doesn't matter if he told me my cigar stunk, I'm still going to shake his hand and tell him I really like him and he's a good guy. It just, my cigar might not be for him.
Yeah, I get that impression too, honestly. When I talk to people that smoke cigars in the cigar shops too, they're a lot less pretentious than the wine sommeliers, honestly.
They are.
It's a lot more inviting. I like that a lot.
Tony, tell me how you come up with some of the names for the lost and found cigars. You've got some very interesting names on here: Pepper Cream Soda, Silent Shout, Swollen Cock. What's up with that?
Oh man!
I'm assuming you're referring to the bird.
Who came up with Swollen Cock? Was that you or Caldwell?
Who do you think?
Yeah, I didn't.
I think it was Caldwell. If I had to guess.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, most of them were like, I smoked a cigar and I'm like, it tastes like pepper cream soda. So that's where pepper cream soda came from. But I mean, most of them are inside jokes between us. And I don't even remember.
Okay, so maybe I you know what? Forget I asked. I don't want to know. I don't want to know now.
A few intimate moments between cigar enjoyers.
Yeah. No, not at all. No, but we were referring to something, or and he goes, that looks like a swollen cock, and I'm like, that's the name of the cigar. So I mean, it's that kind of stuff. It's just fun.
Robbie has such a way with words.
Oh yeah. I get the impression both of you guys are real Stogie geeks. I mean, you guys because talking to Caldwell, not talking to you guys are just really Stogie geeks for sure.
Yeah, and that's what, when we go down, when I go down to Miami and hang out with them, we'll smoke, 20 cigars in a day and just put them out and talk about them. And I mean, he actually knows a lot more about tobacco than I do. And I've never heard somebody geek out about tobacco like Caldwell. But when we're with Henderson, he goes nuts, and he really loves it, and it's really his passion. It's my passion too. I love it, but for some reason he's got a great palate, man. I think he's got one of the best palates in the business, personally. So, and I'm not saying that because he's my friend. I actually don't really even like him that much.
It's a sign of a good friend, actually.
Yeah.
So what's been released and what's coming out in the Lost and Found series?
Well, we have one that's coming in the pipeline. It's actually, we've been waiting on this one because it's a smaller ring gauge, and I know it's going to explode everybody, but we have a pepper cream Corona Gorda that we found with the original pepper cream. So,
now, when you say found, were these already pre-rolled in that size?
Yeah, all of them were.
So these are all pre-rolled. Okay.
There's everything. And some manufacturers, big ones, have from 8 to 10 million cigars in dead inventory.
Wow. I didn't
8
know
to 10
that.
million
Really?
dead cigars.
That many?
Yeah. In dead inventory. And,
Let me-
it's like, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tony.
I was just going to say that the Corona Gorda we thought needed an extra year.
Yeah, gotcha.
And some
Okay.
change because it's a smaller ring gauge, so it's taking a little bit longer but they're perfect now. And I don't know when we're actually going to put them out there yet. I still have to talk to Robbie. I don't even know if he knows I'm telling you guys this, so I expect my phone to start blowing up here shortly.
Let me ask let me ask a question on that, Tony, because so now you guys have come up with this concept. You guys have really put it on the map. Okay, I'm not gonna say you were the first one to do it, but you guys really made this, put it on the map. Is it now becoming a competitive thing where other people are gonna start putting their hunters into the factories to find this stuff?
I don't know.
That's
But
a good question.
To be honest, it's a fun project that we do, and if it has to go away tomorrow, and if we never find a good cigar again to put in, the company's going to be done. It's one of those things where we could smoke 1 million cigars in the next 6 months and not have one. So, maybe they will, and I don't know. And hopefully it does maybe get competitive. We'll see. But for right now, it's not happening. And I think that maybe it'll start. I'm a firm believer in capitalism and Darwinism, and maybe not Darwinism like that came out wrong. I'm like evolution,
Right,
as
right.
in yourself and as a company. And I'm not trying to get religious, but if you are not the best at what you do, then someone else can come by and is better than you at it, then you shouldn't be doing it. And that's the way I look at it. If somebody comes in and decides that they want to start doing it and take our idea, then it's just going to have to make us step up to the next level. And if it has to go away for us, then so be it. Because we have our La Barba and Caldwell respectively separate, and those are our real babies. These are just cigars that we smoke and love and want to get them out there to you guys to smoke. But La Barba, I blended La Barba, and Robbie has blended all of his Caldwell stuff, and those are our babies. Those are our children. The Lost and Found project is kind of like our nephew. That we're like, well, you could babysit him for a little bit, kind of thing. If that makes any sense? I don't know. That was
No, it does. No, that's really cool.
In terms of other new releases, go ahead. In terms of other new releases, Tony, so you did release something very recently. And I know this is one that's probably going to be of interest to Paul. And I just got this cigar 2 days ago. I haven't smoked it yet because it came in the mail, but it was a Siempre Tamboril, and it's a Connecticut.
So the story behind that is that's actually another. It's a separate venture from La Barba, but I mean it's me and my dad and Matt Waris, the kid that runs Matt Cupcakes. I'm sure everybody's heard that name before. But he runs our shop up in Bath, Ohio. And we were down, I brought them down with me when we were putting the finishing touches on the purple. And we were talking with Leo about, there really isn't a cigar smoker's Connecticut. Don't get me wrong, I love Ashton. I love a lot of Connecticut's out there, but they have their time and their place. I wanted a Connecticut with some little bit of oomph. So I started talking to Henderson, and, I was like, we were talking about a breakfast cigar, and that's how I have it right here. That's how the Perla came to be for this. The little La Perla came to be. I wanted a breakfast cigar that had Corojo in it, but it also had that Habano Alto Bajo Seco that I love so much. And my dad really, really loves Habano Alto Bajo Seco because we were smoking little pachuches of them in the DR, and he was smoking whole pachuches of Habano Alto Bajo Seco, the whole thing. I'm like, you're
normally you don't finish those, right? Those
right.
are just
I'm
a
like,
taste.
You're supposed to take. Yeah, I'm like, you're supposed to take a couple puffs and puff pass kind of thing, but he wouldn't give it up. So we brought all the tobacco back, and I said, well, let's put a little bit of Corojo Lajero in here and see how it goes. And then I said, well, let's put a little bit more Corojo Lajero in there and see how it goes. And so now it's almost 50% Corojo Lajero.
Do you get a lot of spice off that Corojo?
Yeah, and it goes so well with that sweet of the Connecticut. And that's what I love about it. The Perla has about 25% Lajero in it, but the bigger sizes have a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But and we also blended it to size. We didn't keep the blend consistent over over all the sizes. We changed per ring gauge. So the Pearl is going to have ratio-wise the same amount of Ligero as the 6x60. But so we came up with this little La Perla, and I loved it. So I said, well, let's bring it back. And we decided to call it Siempre because Siempre means always in Spanish, and it means you can always smoke it. You know, the Pearl is retail for like $3.95, long filler, Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper, Corojo Ligero in the filler. But again, I took that concept of, you know, boxes cost for a box, an empty box of cigars, they're between $5 and $6 now. You know, they're expensive, and that price always gets reflected on the customer. That price always gets reflected on the consumer. There's no way around it. You can't make, you know, we have to put food on our tables, and you know that's the thing. So, and bands cost about 5 to 6 cents a cigar now. So you're looking at it and you're saying, and that's for just a regular generic band. So we're looking at it and we're saying, why don't we just bundle them? We'll put a little ring around them. We'll sell them in bundles of 10. So the La Perla, usually depending on state taxes, you could get a bundle of 10 for $39.95. You smoke them all the time. It's by no means a bundled cigar. It's a blended premium cigar that's in a bundle. And I decided to do bands because everybody was pushing me to do bands, but I did a basic band. I did a die cut that was already out there. I didn't buy new dies because those are thousands of dollars, you know. And I love the romance, and I love, you know, with La Barba, I love the box, and I love the band, and I love that about the cigar business. But sometimes you just want to smoke. So that's why I think that both of those, you know, La Barba and Siempre play really well off of each other. Siempre is, you know, the elegant, refined. You know, Siempre is more like, I want something to smoke. I want to smoke it now. You know, it's Connecticut, but it's got a lot of Corojo in it. I'll smoke the La Perla for breakfast. You know, I'll smoke a premium in the afternoon. And then while I'm cutting the grass, I'll smoke a Robusto. I'll smoke a Robusto Siempre. I'll smoke one when I'm wasted with my friends off bourbon and I can't taste anything anyway. You know, you know, that's exactly what that is. You can always smoke it. And I think that's pretty cool. So that's where Siempre came from.
And so the La Perla is in the Siempre line?
Yeah, Henderson calls them La Perlas. It means the pearl. It's actually a Petit Corona. It's a 4x44.
Gotcha.
I'm just so used to calling them Perlas because he always calls them Perla. I don't, you know, that's Spanish. It's a Petit Corona.
Awesome.
I will send you some.
I would love that. I'm a huge Connecticut shade aficionado, as it were. So I tend to sample a lot of the Connecticut's because my most favorite time to smoke a cigar is first thing in the morning with coffee. So
that's when your palate's the best.
Exactly. I get so much more enjoyment out of cigars. You know, and not a lot more, but like, you know, my palate's fresh. It's first thing in the morning. It's quiet. I tend to get a lot more flavors from my cigars first thing in the morning. And I like a mild to medium cigar that's all about flavor. Now, don't get me wrong. I enjoy the super bold Ligeros at the end of the night. You know, I'm smoking an Opus X now. But I really like that mild to medium first thing in the morning with coffee cigar a lot.
When I did my wine exam, I learned that in wine school that your palate's the best at the morning. And what I would do is I would put under my wine glass, I would put stickers, and it would number 1, number 2, number 3, and I had a Lazy Susan. And right when I would wake up, and I wouldn't get drunk. I would taste them all. Sometimes I got drunk, depending if it was a Sunday. But I would take the Lazy Susan and I would spin it, and then I would pull a glass off, and I would have no idea what it was. And I would try to go back, and I would take it from I knew what the 10 wines were, but I would take it and really try to discern it and try to figure it out. But doing it in the morning, I was way more successful than I was doing it in the evening.
Interesting.
And I noticed that over time, you know, when I was doing it in the morning, I was able to pick out way more flavors. My notes were way more consistent on the wine. So I went back and I looked at all my notes from all my tasting notes from when I was doing that, and they were way more consistent flavor-wise than when I was doing it in the afternoon and the evening. So there you go.
Excellent. Well, you got more questions for Tony?
I think I've exhausted my questions.
Tony, you ready to play 5 questions with the Stogie Geeks?
Yeah.
I have to bring them up. Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm having a moment. I'm sorry. I've been drinking. It's my excuse. So, Tony, 3 words to describe yourself.
Ooh, drunk, honest, and insane.
If you were a serial killer, what would be your weapon of choice?
Just one weapon, or is this a 3-part question again?
No, this is just one weapon.
I like that old school garrote wire with the handles on it, where you
Nice.
come up behind somebody. Yeah.
If you wrote a book about yourself, what would the title be?
Drunk, honest, insane.
I love when the answer to number 1 is the same answer to number 3. It's great. In the popular game of Ask Grabby Grabby, do you prefer to go first or second?
I don't know what game that is.
I think it's when you probably play with Robert, but I could be. Maybe I'm wrong.
It's popular in Europe.
It's very popular in Europe.
Ask Grabby Grabby. And what was the end of the question? What do I like to do first?
Yeah, would you prefer to go first or second in the game of Ask Grabby Grabby?
I mean, I'm always going to go first. I don't know what it is, but I'm not going sloppy seconds on anything.
Choose.
I don't care what it is.
Tony, choose 2 celebrities to be your parents.
To be my parents. I would say Clooney and his new wife.
Who's
Not
his-
because she's hot. He actually got married, but because they live in Lake Como, Italy.
George Clooney is
She's-
a popular answer. Somewhat popular.
He looks like he'd be a good dad. He looks like he'd be a fun dad. I'm trying to think of who else. I don't know about Brad. I wouldn't want Brad Pitt as my dad.
Sure,
I
you
want him
would.
as my buddy.
Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie is the most popular answer to that question, Tony.
Really?
I don't know what it is. There's something motherly and fatherly, the good looks. I don't know.
But I wouldn't want my mom to be Angelina Jolie.
You don't want to be that attracted to your mom. I understand. It's like a Freudian thing. It's a very
Yeah.
it's a deeper
weird.
question than it seems so on the surface.
Right.
Awesome. Well, Tony, thank you very much for appearing on. Oh, sorry. Did you want to give a proper mom answer other than George Clooney's new wife?
No. I was just gonna say, I'm really humbled and appreciative. I was gonna follow that up, but go ahead. I'll say that in a second.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Tony. It was wonderful having you on. I learned a lot. I'm going to have to do a lot of Googling about what you guys were talking about with wine. But hopefully it I think it did open our listeners' eyes to, a lot of the things that we compare with wine, a lot of the different types of wines. We talked about a lot of different things. And we talked about Italian Sunday dinner, which is like one of my favorite rituals in all of existence, I think, is Italian Sunday dinner. So
It is great. Well, again, I'm humbled, and I'm really glad you guys gave me the opportunity to come on and speak the word of wine and cigars from my mouth. And anytime you guys want me to be back on, I'm more than happy to come.
Oh,
in.
you know, I wanted to ask, did you ever have a homemade wine, Italian homemade wine?
Me?
Yeah.
I used to be the head judge of the Youngstown, Ohio, which is 99.9% Italian.
Yeah.
The Youngstown, Ohio Homemade Wine Festival.
It's
I would
like
have to drink-
huge in the Italian culture, right? Like I used to have homemade. My grandfather used to bring it over. Oh, I made this with my cousins, and you get wasted on homemade wine. What is it? It's really high in alcohol content.
Bro, you have no idea. I had to drink 100. I had to taste 150 homemade wines
Oh my god!
every year, and I was so blasted when I got done, and I had the worst headache.
I bet.
And some of them are so bad, like, and I can't say it, because these guys have been doing it for 150
Oh, yeah.
years, and it's like, and they're so proud of it. One lady yelled at me real quick before we get out. One lady came up to me and she goes, and her husband's Barolo got third place, and she comes up to me and she goes, "Why did my husband's wine get third place?" And I go, well, "I don't know what wine your husband had." She's like, "Well, it's the Barolo, and he's dead now. And all I wanted him to do is on his last wine get a gold medal." I go, "You're really going to put that on me?" She's like, "Well, we had to finish the wine, but he died while he was making it." And I'm like, "Well, I didn't know that your husband, I was drinking your dead husband's wine. I judge them and they just have numbers on them,
Right.
And she was yelling at me and and I go, well, you still got third place. It's still a good wine, but it wasn't the best one. What do you want?
And this was after when you're pretty intoxicated.
Yeah. And some guy made a Vidalia onion wine that I had to taste.
Ooh.
It was awesome.
Really?
Really?
I'm not kidding. It was sweet. It was like a dessert wine.
That's pretty awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. Fond memories of getting drunk with my grandfather on Italian homemade wine.
Yes.
Oh, awesome. Well, Tony, it's been a pleasure. With that, we're going to take a short break, come back with our Debonair Ideal segment, so stay tuned.
Thank you.